What is going on, everybody? It's your boy Luke here with our round 2 showdown live stream for the 3M Open. Round 1 played a lot harder than people expected. I mean, there were a few names around the industry that thought it might play a little bit harder, but at least with the first 3 years at the 3M, I mean, it was a relative birdie fest, right? So that may be the case for the last 3 rounds, so we'll have to see. But in round 1, it definitely resembled a PGA National Day where, when the winds are high, you have all that water out there. There was quite a bit of carnage. I mean, even for guys like Hideki Matsuyama, who ended up shooting 6 over, obviously withdrew. Just want to get that out right now. Screw Hideki. He was in 50% of my lineups, guys. I was huge on the guy, and he didn't really play all that bad. Really, it was just the bad decisions on 18 right there. I mean, 2 over par today was pretty much par for the course. The cut line right now is almost 2 over par, so definitely one of those days where wind and water drove the narrative, but have a few solid lineups. Sanjay Im ended up being a great sleeper pick for us. Also, Scott Piercy in 7% of my lineups and also in one of my really high dollar free max contests. So I'm living on that Sanjay Piercy train. The guys in the AM definitely came through for us. But here in the second round, I see an AM PM split. We were forecasting winds potentially there for Friday morning. Remember, they were in that 25 to 33 mile an hour range. I'll just spoil it right now. That is not the case anymore. And I told you that was definitely a possibility with how the weather's changing here in Minnesota. So let's go ahead, stop my blabbing, go ahead and just hop right on into this thing. So let's share my screen and let's take a look at the data golf profile. So in terms of a general scoring average, like I said, right about 2 over par. So if somebody shot 2 over today, believe it or not, it was right about average, actually slightly worse than average. But in either way, I mean, it was just tough out there. The wind in the water really led to a lot of chaos. And if you split it by wave, you'll see it was difficult in both waves. It wasn't like one played really all that much more difficult than the other. In the morning, it was 1.67 shots over par. In the afternoon, about plus 2.1. So about a 0.4 shot, 0.5 shot difference between the two waves right there. Which doesn't seem all that severe, but that's what we're used to seeing, right? Between the morning and the afternoon, if winds are going to be relatively flat, which is kind of what we saw here on Thursday, you can see the sustained winds were between, let's say, like 13 and 15 miles an hour between 9 and 5 p.m. That seems pretty fair to me, to be honest with you. And then you had like a hour and a half, maybe 2-hour window at the very most, where the winds were slightly lower. So I'd argue the weather played relatively flat today, but we still saw right around a half a stroke difference. That is just due to the receptiveness of the greens, right? In the morning, they're a lot more receptive than what you're going to get when they're baked out in the afternoon. And that effect is going to continue throughout the weekend. So we're obviously in a single round sample size going to be targeting guys playing in the morning, but particularly here on Friday, where you can see the winds, though they aren't like drastically higher in the afternoon, they are just marginally higher, right? In the morning, it's right around like a 5 to 6 mile an hour sustained wind. The wind gusts are pretty much non-existent. They're the same as the sustained winds, which is a little bit surprising, right? Normally you'll see a little bit of wind gusts, right? But they're projecting for no wind gusts at all. In the afternoon wave, they have 10 to 12 miles an hour of sustained winds with 13 to 16 mile an hour wind gusts. So you're looking at what? I don't know, I'd say like a 7 to 8 mile an hour difference in terms of the wind gusts there, and then a 4 or 5 mile an hour difference when it comes to the actual sustained wind. So it doesn't seem like a massive difference, but I'd expect that to resolve right around a 3/4 of a stroke difference between the two waves, which for guys up top, when you're spending $9,000, $10,000 tomorrow, I don't think it's necessarily as important as what you're doing when you're going down and dumpster diving for some of those 6 and 7K plays, because somebody like a Sahith Theegala, for example, who's at the top of the pricing board today with Hideki's withdrawal, is more than capable of going out there and putting up a ceiling performance. I mean, today was just burning the edge on almost every single hole. His ball striking was all over the place. And time again, we've seen Sahith go out there and rebound after a really shaky performance. So there are going to be guys in the PM that I'm still playing because, I mean, look at it. It's 9 to 10 miles an hour of sustained winds. The wind gusts really aren't all that bad. It's certainly possible to get to that ceiling performance. But when you're talking about a guy in that 6 and 7K range in this field, especially for Showdown, you're dumpster diving. You're going to somebody who needs every single advantage that he can get. So for guys under $8,000, every single one in my player pool, I think with the exception of maybe 1 or 2 players, is going to be in the AM wave. There's like 15 to 20 because I'm 150 maxing here for the second round. That are going to be in the AM wave instead, right? As opposed to single digits, I can count them on one hand. That's going to be playing in the PM wave. We'll go ahead and catch up on chat before we go ahead and hop into the player pool. We got Nick Marsh down there. What's going on? He says, "What's up? How are you feeling?" Which, great question. I'm feeling pretty good. Really scratchy throat, so I got a water bottle over here. I've been taking some vitamin C and whatnot, but feeling pretty good, dude. I've had COVID before, so I'm kind of holding off pretty well this time. Nick Marsh says, "I'm on that 100% Sanjay in first round leader high." Yeah, you mentioned that to me. That's awesome. And of course, if you go all in on somebody, then the first round leader, you're going to be sitting in a pretty good spot. So that's awesome, Nick. I'm glad to hear that. Obviously, going into the second round here, you're probably feeling pretty good. Catch Me If You Can says, "Emiliano Grillo can make dreams come true. Took down the $2,100 showdown. 20K drinks on me. Hey, I'll take you up on that if you wanna do that. That's awesome, dude. Anytime you can go down and take something, I mean, especially a showdown down on the first day, you're playing with house money for the rest of the week, right? Your 4-round lineups are more than paid for. You're probably even happy with that for your 4-round winnings throughout the weekend. So whatever happens from here on out is just gravy at this point. So you'll love to see that. Catch Me If You Can, who is a regular around here. You love to see the regulars like a Nick Marsh, like a Catch Me If You Can, going out there and seeing that success. That's exactly what I want to see. So let's go ahead and hop into this player pool. And frankly, we're going to talk about a few fades, and we're not going to talk about my entire pool, but you're going to see a trend. Like all showdown slates, particularly for round 2 showdown, let's just talk about the general big picture before we actually go play by play. All of the ownership goes to the guys at the top of the leaderboard, right? And it's not going to be hard to guess who they are. Sanjay, I love the fact that he got you that first round leader ticket, Nick, right? But unfortunately, we're not playing him here for the second round showdown, right? I got him at right around 30% owned, which I know there's not that many options above 9K. It's the same story as what we had with our 4-round stuff. So 30% really isn't all that bad, right? Everyone's going to be kind of chalky up top, but he's also playing in the PM wave, right? So as much as I hope Sanjay kind of holds it together, I have him in, 45% of my 4-round lineups. So I'm sitting pretty good on that end. I had 50% Hideki, by the way. I think I already said that. Just rip to those lineups. Yeah, he didn't even give us hope here with the second round. But my Sanjay lineups, I'm loving them. I just don't love them for showdown, right? Playing in the hard, quote unquote, harder of the 2 waves. And there are guys I like getting to a little bit more. Most notably, guys like a Davis Riley. So Davis Riley today, horrible off the tee, was missing left and right, was spraying it. He'll do that from time to time. He's not necessarily the most accurate driver, but he's super long. And when he was hitting fairways, he was setting up like 100 to 110 yard wedge shots and taking advantage of them. The issue was he missed multiple putts. I believe it was at least three per my count. Could have been closer to 4 or 5. I wasn't paying close enough attention. Putts within like 7 to 10 feet. Just you expect somebody of his putting pedigree to make those type of putts. And while he did make a few from that 15 to 20 foot range, which, you're going to make maybe 1 around 2 if you're lucky, that sort of thing. It wasn't enough to make up for those short misses. And if he goes out there tomorrow and just cleans those up, and he's shooting something under par, which, it's not going to be a ceiling performance given how low the winds are going to be. But he could easily take it to 4 or 5 under par. He's somebody I project you can see at 46 fantasy points. I believe it's the second highest projection of anyone I have on the slate. So that's regardless of price. He's $9,400. And obviously, this is a median projection, right? You don't want to look into that too much. It really doesn't mean all that much at the end of the day. But I like the price tag. I don't think he's going to be super highly owned. You can see I have him at 18.7%, which I'm much more comfortable getting leverage on, taking something like 40% of Davis Riley rather than taking 60% or maybe even 65% of Sanjay to try and get leverage there. It's I'm a little bit more comfortable getting to Davis Riley. He's in the morning wave. And like I said, the putter really held him back. The driving accuracy was certainly an issue. That's why he was behind the 8 ball on a lot of his approach shots, but he still gained with the approach. He was great when he had the opportunity to succeed there. Just needs to clean it up a little bit. We'll see whether that happens for round 2. If it does, probably looking at a ceiling round for Davis Riley. Alrighty, let's move on a little bit lower. So we talked about my general philosophy up here, right? Is play the guys in the AM that looked good with their ball striking. So certainly Davis Riley fit that bill. Again, just has to clean up the accuracy. But there are guys in the PM that I'm playing. So I talked about Sahith Theegala, right? He's a prime candidate for that, right? So I'm not going to let you know whether he's in my pool or not, but somebody who, again, bounces back. So even though he's in the PM wave, somebody that might be worth considering. Tony Finau going to be the chalkiest play on the slate. Now, I'm not going to let you know whether I'm playing him or not, but because he's in the morning wave, right? So obviously in the advantageous conditions, but he is also going to be well higher owned than somebody even like a Sanjay M. So you're going to have to make that decision for yourself. Are you going to be willing to play 70% of somebody like a Tony Finau tomorrow? If the answer is no to that, then you should probably play 0% because you're not going to get adequate leverage unless you do. You have somebody like Maverick McNeely. He's in the PM wave, so similar boat as somebody like a Sahith Theegala, right? Whereas, he's a volatile player. He's in the PM wave, though. So if you love the play, then you can get to it. If not, then I don't think you have to force it in. Again, he's in the PM wave. I'm not going to let you know what I'm thinking about it, though. Adam Hadman, same story, right? Another PM wave guy. I could see it, right? The conditions aren't all that bad, right? It's 9 to 10 miles an hour. With the guys up top, I'm a lot less worried about the AM PM stuff because they're more than capable of shooting 4 to 5 under and under almost any conditions. Whereas the guys towards the bottom of the 7K range, towards the top of the 6K range, like I said, I'm looking for any edge I can get at this point, right? Down here, I'm looking for somebody who's a high birdie or better percentage, right? Like somebody like a Peter Monati, for example, like that could be a reason to play him tomorrow. Now he's in the PM wave. I'm not playing him because he's in the PM wave. It's usually that type of mindset here in the 6K range. The AM wave can be one of those reasons, right? Let alone something like a Steven Yeager, who we'll talk about later, who has shot a 59 before. He's an extremely aggressive player. He's a great putter. When you get the advantageous conditions plus something like that, that's what I'm looking to go to down low. But up top, like I'm saying, it's not the end all be all. There are going to be plenty of guys up there above $9,000, and I'm playing in the quote unquote bad, worst of the two waves. Oh, my throat's getting me here. Sorry, guys. Like I said, scratch your throat today than we had the other day in terms of the whole COVID thing. But other than that, not really feeling any symptoms. So we're good on that end. Next up, we got JT Poston at $8,800. AM wave, obviously in the advantageous conditions. He shot even par the last time I checked. I was putting together projections right before the slate ended up wrapping up. So he might have actually gone up or down from that point, but top 3 in my modeling. I loved him going into the week. He's a solid bent grass putter, but more importantly, JT Poston is an aggressive iron player, also a good putter. So when he puts himself in position, he typically is able to capitalize on those opportunities. So JT Poston, who's coming in with arguably the best form of anybody in this range, I'm certainly getting to because I'm at 18.5%. That's nothing, right, in terms of ownership. He was higher owned in 4-round contests. People are going to look at an even par performance. And even though he's like in 26th place, whatever even par is tied for at this point, people are going to look at it as quote unquote disappointing, right? Everyone wants to play Sanjay. Everyone wants to play somebody like a Tony Finau. I mean, Adam Hadwin's going to get attention because of his scorecard. I mean, even Cameron Davis, right? Because he shot 1 under par, is going to get a lot more attention here for the round, rather than somebody like a JT Poston, or even guys that are like just hardly over par, like an Adam Svensson. His ownership's going to go down right around 10% from where it was on 4-round contests, just because of the round today, right? Of 2 over par, which at this point is pretty much right on the cut line, if not creeping closer to the actual cut line. He's in the PM wave. I'll spill the beans. Like that's pretty. It hurts him a lot, especially when he's still going to be like 20% owned. So I don't love the Svensson play there. But that's just giving you an idea of how I grade some of the players here in this range. Let's see. Let's talk about the 8K range specifically. So we talked about JT Poston. I like that play. This range is kind of a dead zone to me. It's going to be low owned. So if you're looking for pivots, if you're playing in like a large field contest, it makes a lot of sense to get to a JT Poston. Get to some of these guys that are relatively lower owned. I mean, JT Poston's going to be even high owned for this range, like 18.5%. Obviously, Svensson's like 20% owned. He's going to be relatively high owned. But outside of that, like Ches Reavie is going to be single digits. Martin Laird might be single digit owned come Friday. Ji-Young Kim, he's going to get a little bit of attention just because he's like 20-1 to win the golf tournament. He didn't have the best day one, so maybe it's not crazy in terms of ownership. But Nick Hardy is not going to be super high owned. Chris Gotterup, you can see I have him at 13.8% right now. This is the pivot range right here. So if you're looking to try and, kind of differentiate your lineup a little bit, this is probably where you can do so. You can start with somebody in the 10K range and then maybe take like 2 to 3 guys here. And, it's a weird build. A lot of people are going to try and take Tony Finau, maybe even Sanjay M together, or somebody like a Tony Finau, and then maybe take a chance on a Davis Riley. Obviously, I think the play is going to make sense tomorrow. So I think people will be keen to that and then build their lineup. I don't know if it's going to be popular to maybe start with somebody like a Sanjay. I mean, not a Sanjay, sorry. I mean, maybe they do start with Sanjay, right? He's going to be popular tomorrow. Maybe start with Sanjay or somebody up in that range. Then Davis, not skip the Davis Riley, skip this whole 9K range here. They just live in the 8K. I think that might be a little bit contrarian tomorrow. At least my ownership projections, if you guys look at the spreadsheet there, from the whole way from, I'd say, Brendan Steele, the whole way down to Ryan Palmer right here, everybody's like royally underowned outside of like one or two players, which are Adam Svensson and JT Poston right there. So those are my thoughts on the 8K range. We'll talk about Chris Gotterup specifically before we hop into the 7K range and then some of your live questions. He's in the morning wave. He quote unquote disappointed today. The last time I checked, I mean, he was still playing. He was 2 over par. I'm buying back in on that. He's going to be that piece of chalk who no one wants to play in round 2 showdown because he's quote unquote sucked, right? And everyone wanted to play for 4-round contests. He's this, shiny new toy on the block. I'm going to buy in, right? If everyone is zagging, I'm going to go and zig at that same time because this is a high-end talent. I wanted to play Chris Gotterup this week. He was just chalk, right? You can only eat so much chalk. I decided to eat the Svensson chalk, and he made 6 birdies today. So I'm pretty happy with that. Just make the cut, Svensson. If you can do so, I'm very confident you can get to 20 birdies, which should be enough for these large field contests. We'll have to see. It's all about him making the cut or not. Gotterup, the same type of thing, right? He's got that firepower to go out there, make 6-7 birdies in a round. So if he's going to be 13% owned, give me 40-50% Chris Gotterup tomorrow. He's going to be one of my bigger stands that I'm taking. Obviously, not taking him in 4-round lineups makes this an even better play for me because if he goes off tomorrow, so be it, right? At least I'm getting my exposure now. For day one, he looked like crap. So I'm looking like a genius right now, but I definitely want to, buy back in because the conditions will be ripe for him. And I don't know, he's a high pedigree player. He's underpriced still. Like, in terms of pedigree, he's probably at least as good as like a Davis Riley. Like at least he's a Haskins Award winner, right? Davis Riley was not a Haskins Award winner. He's actually arguably an even better player. It's somebody like a Davis Riley. We'll have to see whether that ends up being the case, but I'm certainly buying in on Chris Gotterup. Give me him there at $8,200. We'll go ahead and catch him on chat, see what's going on, and answer some of your live questions. We're hopping into the 7K range. So we got Nick Marsh. It's got to do the victory lap on Tom Hoge. If you guys remember, I mentioned that Nick Marsh was somebody who let me know about Tom Hoge. Great round there. The iron play was stellar, which is what we were waiting for with Tom Hoge. And what is he, like 15th on the FedEx Cup rankings or whatever he is at this point? And he's like $7,100 in this field. Like, are you kidding me? That makes no sense, right? So, yeah, that was a good buy for sure. Catch Me If You Can says it was Hoagie, Rio, M, Hadwin, Ricky, and Piercy. What a lineup. That's awesome. I had all of those players were in my player pool for 4-round lineups, but I couldn't put them in the same lineup. So obviously that ended up taking down Showdown. I'm sure if I had that for my 4-round lineups, I'd be winning all the money right now. But I didn't have that permutation. So damn, because like you put all those players in front of me. I'm like, yeah, I played all those guys, but didn't have them all together. So is golf DFS from time to time. Keegan says Cam Champ tomorrow burns so many edges in blue close putts and had plenty of looks. I would agree on all of those things. The thing I worry about is he looked so disengaged. I mean, obviously made an eagle on the last hole. I don't know if any of you saw that. He chipped in on 18 to make an eagle there, which that's just golf for you, right? You're 6 over par through 17 holes, and then you chip out on 18 to bring you back the next day, keep you engaged. Well, I hope he makes the cut, and I hope you're right. I don't think I'm personally going to be all that invested in Cam Champ tomorrow. I worry about the putting. It has been an issue for him for quite some time, at least like a month or two at this point. But he is capable of turning that around. And last year, this is the tournament. These are the greens that he turned it around on. So Keegan, I'm not against the play. I just can't play everyone, right? I got to pick my spots a little bit. What's his price here? He's $7,500. There's a lot of really low owned gem plays here because Cameron Champ, obviously, he's going to be relatively low owned because of the round, but there's guys around him that are even 5 times lower than that, like a Caleb Turan, for example. That's going to be like microscopically owned compared to somebody like a Cameron Champ that I might personally be getting to, right? I don't want to spill the beans completely on some of the guys down here in black. Yeah, I don't hate the play. It makes sense, particularly if you think he can flip that putter. That's really what has to happen for him, though. He has to be able to flip that. Nick Marr says Harry Higgs got a 10 on 18. Dude, he was having such a good round, too. He needs to have a good week this week. That sucks for him. He needs to get in that top 125. We need to see Harry Higgs on the PGA Tour next year. Catch Me If You Can says, wasn't that special? Only had to beat 24 entries. It's still a really solid lineup, though. What is it? Like Hoagie -4, Grillo -3, M -6, Hadman -3, Ricky -1, Piercy -7. I mean, in a GPP, that's probably top 100 at this point. That's pretty damn good. Pat yourself on the back there. I mean, that's a pretty solid lineup there. Lee Payne says, if you only had $10 a week to play, what contest would you play, if any? If I had $10, I would probably just play 20 lineups in the 50-cent GBP. I would spread it out as much as humanly possible. There's also 10-cent GBPs where you can do a 20 max, I believe, for 10 cents. So I believe that's, obviously a really cheap GPP you can go with. And you can do multiple of those, right? Do like 3 or 4 of those contests when they keep reposting them. I'd go that method, Lee. As many lineups as you can humanly enter. I would not do like a $5 single entry or $5 entries or something like that. I would definitely go the more lineups method. That's for sure. And Catch Me If You Can says, like every gambler says after last week's, I'm about even. Yeah, no, last week was an ass whooping for me. That's for sure. I did not make out well in the Open Championship. But yeah, I know some people, will get an ass whooping and be like, oh, it was a good week. There's a lot of people out there that say that, but it is what it is. You're going to get transparency from me for the most part here. I say for the most part because I'm not going to like go through my ROI with you guys on stream. I'm actually at some point, maybe like a monthly ROI thing. We're not going to do it stream by stream though, right? Because there's swings in DFS. We don't have to necessarily go through that. I want to do that at some point, just like from a month by month thing to kind of show you like, after 4 weeks, what was my ROI for the month? Because I think that makes sense. But doing it week to week, I mean, maybe if the demand's there, if you guys want to see like a lineup study, I'd be willing to do that. But from like an ROI, like business perspective, showing like win-loss stuff, if you want to see that, go ahead and comment down below. I might start doing that because I know there's a demand for it. And honestly, I think it's like a lost art when it comes to the DFS. People will talk about the projections. We'll talk about, who they think is going to play well the next week. But more importantly, your process, how you actually execute DFS is arguably more important than actually the plays that you're using, right? So I think there's a lack of content out there covering that end of DFS. Like part of it's self-reflection, right? Looking at your lineups, looking at, what went well for you, what didn't go so well for you, so you can learn from it the next week. So I think maybe, you could learn from me doing that on stream, perhaps, or just from the ROI perspective, right? Showing you, where am I generating the most revenue, right? How much of my revenue is coming from 50-50s on cash lineups? How much of it is from my single entries, right? Which could be a little bit more consistent than your GBPs. And then what is the effect of a big hit in a GBP for your long-term ROI? Because you'll see, like when you hit for, a long-term, like a big GBP, like it can keep you afloat for like 3-4 months, right? Whereas month to month, when you're just winning these single entries, these cash contests, week to week, you might only be making like 1.2x what you're putting in, right, after 4 weeks or something like that. Whereas, when you have that GPP win, you might be up for, plus 20 units for multiple months. So it's just, if you want to see that, go ahead and let me know. Ramble aside, let's go ahead and talk about this 7K range now. Did I catch up on all the questions? Go ahead and make sure of that before we move on. We did. Okay, cool. All right, let's go ahead and move on. So we have Emiliano Grillo here at $7,700. He's playing in the AM wave. Obviously, Catch Me If You Can was able to hit on that today. But more importantly, he figured out the putter. This has been a trend for him for quite some time. It's why the recent form was so good for Emiliano. And I had a hard time buying in on it going into the week. Now, I played him. It was a hard yes for me. It was a hard click into my player pool this week because I know how bad of a putter he is historically. But he did it round one. He made plenty of putts. And if he's going to do that with how good of a ball striker he is on receptive greens tomorrow, he might be your leader there at like 10:30, 11 a.m. Eastern time tomorrow. He might be that guy who gets out there, starts 3 to 4 under par, ends up taking the lead from guys like Sanjay that are teeing off later on. That would not surprise me. So I'll be playing him. The ball striking, the putting has been there for quite some time. I guess we'll talk about the 7K range in general, trying to do that. So even though we're not going to talk about the guys I'm playing, it's he's the chalkiest guy I'm taking the 7K range. You can see 17.7% ownership. He was like 10% owned in 4-round contests. So obviously after today's round, I would expect that to only go up here for Friday Showdown. Getting way ahead of myself. It's not Sunday yet. What am I saying there? But I'm going to a lot of pivot plays outside of Emiliano. So Emiliano is going to be at 35% of my player pool. I'm taking quite a stand on Emiliano because he's relatively high owned. But getting to guys that are low owned, like Caleb Turan, I talked about, Who's going to be a low-owned guy in the AM? So let's give you some ideas. Wyndham Clark is not going to have much ownership, right? We played him in our 4-round contest, maybe worth a few looks. Let's see. Let's go down a little bit further. We've got Cameron Champ. I know somebody mentioned him before. Maybe worth a look as a pivot, right? $7,500, going to be low-owned. Moving down, Michael Thompson. No one's going to play him. He didn't have a solid day today. Austin Smotherman, we'll talk about. He's playing decently, so he's going to get some ownership. You can see 5.8%, but still relatively low-owned. Kazire, he's actually 3 under. He ended up having a much stronger end to the round than I anticipated. So I did the projections when he was at, I believe, even par. So his projection and ownership might be a little bit off there with Patton. But yeah, he's an option you can get to. He's not going to be like 10% owned. Probably be like 6-7% tomorrow. We got John Huh. He'll be relatively low owned, teeing off in the morning. Michael Glick also going to be relatively overlooked. Hank Lebiota was 2 under. So I have him at 2.4%. He got to 2 under before I got these projections up. So he's probably going to be closer to like 5 or 6%. But again, these are guys that, you can play in 10-12% of your lineups and get leverage to them. So, and they're playing in the morning wave. So, and guys like Rio, guys like Hank Lebiota, they've already played well at this event. And Lebiota, he ended up withdrawing last year. And I believe he was like in the top 5 of the event. He ended up having to withdraw after the second round when he was in the top 5 because of some type of health scare, which ended up being like a false alarm or something like that. It was like a blood test that came back with something that was real serious. And didn't end up being the case or something like that, at least if the report I heard was correct. So Hank Lebiota loves the golf course. He's played well here, right? Obviously, the result says, was it missed? Let's go ahead and just confirm this. Because I believe it was last year. Maybe it was 2 years ago. Hank Lebiota. Wow, I'm on the wrong tab. Sick. That's like the 3rd time I've done that this week. It was last year, 2021, when he'd had that withdrawal. Ridiculous stuff. So obviously likes the golf course. Played another solid round today. I'll be getting to him in the advantageous conditions. I'll go ahead and see if there's any questions down on chat. And I will remind you, you can go ahead and let me know if there's any deep dives you want. So while I won't talk about all my plays on the slate, I will go through some of the shots gained metrics on people, bring up their shots gained from round 1, that sort of thing. If there's anybody that you're curious on. Simic Thunder says, I lineup study. I think it would be nice. Yeah, it's a part of everyone's process that does it seriously, at least that takes DFS seriously, especially if you're 150 maxing, right? So I'm somebody that enters 150 lineups. I do 2 to 3 maxes. Sorry, not 2 maxes, no such thing. I do 3 maxes, do single entries. I really differentiate my lineups. I do cash lineups as well week to week. So I think, kind of going through my player pool in each contest, it might be a little bit telling to you guys. And, if I'm going through it after the fact, right, I'm not giving anything up, right? I'm just giving you what I did the week before. It's not really going to impact what I'm doing going forward. And I think you might learn a lot from it, right? Whereas, the night before, I'm not going to build my lineups on stream for you, right? Because obviously I'm still trying to play against you guys. So maybe it's something that we'll go ahead and do. Cash Me Can says, I'm honest, I blew 13K last week. Hey, so you're at least still up 7K now with your 20K win today. But yeah, I guess that at the Open Championship, right? It's a week that can get some people, that's for sure. Nick Marsh says Barton. Okay. Who is Barton, bro? Yeah, I don't know who Barton is, to be honest with you, Nick. I don't know if you misspelled someone's name wrong. I just don't know who they are, and I don't have them in my player pool here. I'm going to go over the Draftkings and see if there's a Barton in the field. Is there? You're saying Barjon. Saying Barjon if I had to gander. And the answer on Barjon is that he's on my sheet here, and we're going to talk about him, and he is certainly in the player pool. So let's go ahead and just move on to him. Yeah, Barjon. Yeah, I figured. Yeah, I know it's auto-correcting on you there, Nick. I figured it out, though. We're good. Barjon, teeing off in the morning, didn't have his best stuff today. Relatively cheap. Now, have we seen him go off in Showdown before? Yes, multiple times, at least 4 or 5 times this year. Barjon has cracked the optimal lineup. It's because he's always cheap, and he's also a great ball striker. So kind of like a lot of the other guys in the 7K range I'm taking. So we're going to talk about Austin Smotherman here in a second when we go up there. But guys like Barjon as well, they struggle with the flat stick. And if he can get that turned around, he could shoot 6-7 under par real quick because he's going to throw darts on these receptive greens when they're going to be a little bit damper than what we're getting in the afternoon. You're going to play target practice. And look, I'm at 0.6% owned. Now, talking about them on stream, there's 50 of you in here. So you're probably going to end up cranking up the ownership a little bit, but it's still going to be relatively low owned. I don't really have that big of an effect, if any, on ownership, to be honest. Moving up, let's go back up. Let's catch up on where we were here, because it looks like we are caught up in questions. And we skipped Austin Smotherman. Smotherman, I like. We talked about him. He's like 5.8% owned. So he's not going to be completely overlooked, but like his round today wasn't anything special. Like it's not going to draw all that much attention, and his modeling was all advantageous going into the week. So I'll be there. Steven Yeager, we kind of touched on it, but 3.1% owned. He didn't have his best stuff today, but it really wasn't all that bad. I mean, he's just kind of towards the middle of the pack, which I think is serviceable. I'm more than happy to get to those players because they're going to be overlooked and they still have just as much potential as pretty much everyone else. I mean, maybe marginally less because they're not quote unquote in form. And a lot of people want to play an informed golfer. But Steven Yeager, you got to remember, this guy shot a 59. Like I said before, he's got more than enough firepower to take this place low. So I like him there. He hits fairways. He's one of the better putters that we have. And in Showdown, that's a real good way to get to a ceiling performance, is just make a shit ton of putts. And I definitely think he's capable of doing that. Hayden Buckley at $6,700. Everyone wanted to play him going into the week. I mean, he was one of those guys I just got a million questions on. I got a million questions about him, Austin Cook, a few others. When we go past them, I'll point them out. But they all ended up being way higher than they should be. And every week I get like 4 or 5 guys that are asked about like 8 times throughout the week. One of them is Hayden Buckley, and he quote unquote shit the bed, right? He was like even par the last time I checked. So I have him going down in ownership, the 3.8%. And those type of plays, it made sense. Like there's a reason people pointed him out. His ball striking numbers, particularly on approach, were pretty damn solid. So that's what people are really hunkering down on. And, I'm willing to do so. It's just, he's also a slapdick. He's just not a quality player when it comes to the PGA Tour. So I'm not going to count on him for a full round sample size. But if you're talking about Friday Showdown, where he needs to go out there, make the cut, kind of go out and do something, I'm about it at $6,700, particularly in the advantageous wave. So he's a streaky putter. He's not the worst putter. He actually gains to the field over certain sample sizes over 24 rounds. He's a little bit streaky in the negative department too, though. So he, can dry up real quickly on Hayden. But if you can go out there and get that ceiling performance, I love it. And that's it for the plays that I'm talking about. We talked about Parbajan a little bit. I love the ball striking. In this 6K range, I'm a lot more lenient about who I'm getting to, right? They're all going to be AM wave guys. So I'm not taking anybody in the PM wave here in the 6K range, which there might be ceiling performances in the PM wave, but I'm not expecting there to be like that 8-9 under par round in the PM, right? If somebody's going to take this to a 62, 61, for God's sake, out there tomorrow, 10 under par, it's going to be the AM guys. Like I don't see it in the PM. When it's baked out, you're not be able to put a ton of spin on the golf ball. It's hard to hit it to 4 or 5 feet all day, right? You start to get the luck of the bounce coming into play. The greens, they're going to be a little bit scuffed up. They're going to have some ball marks on them, right? Little indentations near the hole. All of that adds up over the entire day. So I'm blocking out the PM guys, just taking my 8 shots on these AM dudes. We talked about some of the ball strikers. There's a few other volatile players you could consider. We talked about Malnati. Now, Malnati's in the PM wave, so I'm not playing him. But guys that have a high birdie or better percentage, like a Peter Malnati, that are playing in the AM wave, I'm willing to take shots on. So that should be a pretty good way for you guys to go and figure out plays for yourself, right? Just, bring up somebody's birdie or better percentage. They're better than average on tour, and they're playing in the morning. They're probably in my player pool. So that should give you an idea of what I'm doing down low. And it's relatively straightforward. Again, I'm trying to take any edge I can get when it comes to the cheaper players on the board. Towards the 7K range, I guess we'll touch on some of the strategy there. Like I said, there's a few pieces of chalk I'm taking, but it's a majority just the high upside ball strikers, right? Like an Austin Smotherman, like a Hinckley Biota, who likes this golf course. Also a good putter, Hinckley Biota. Relatively streaky in that department. Chris Goddard up another solid ball striker here, $8,200. That's really my thought process going into the second round. What we're going to do now is hop over to Draftkings and make a few lineups. And we're not going to make full lineups. We're just going to go through our top 4 picks here for a cash lineup, and then for a GPP build. And then we're going to wrap it up with any Q&A. So if you do have any questions, make sure to go ahead and throw them down in chat right now. So whenever we're done with the strategy section, we will get to all of those, whether it's a deep dive, strategy for tomorrow, contest selection, whatever you guys want to talk about, go ahead and throw that down below. So let's go ahead and start with a cash build. So just the easy way, right? Median projection, just pretty much taking all the chalk for tomorrow. Alrighty. Throat is getting a little scratchy, so we're doing good on time here. If we can wrap this up in like 10 minutes, my throat will probably hold up just about that long. So when it comes to cash, you always want to take the quote unquote chalk. And it's a twofold reason. Because first off, the chalk is usually, I don't want to say usually like always, but usually the best play, right? Like the chalk is the chalk because people are pretty solid at playing DFS, identifying the quote unquote best plays on the slate. And you want to do that when it comes to single round showdown too, right? Because you're going to get the quote unquote best plays. But more importantly, when it comes to cash contests, it's about cornering yourself into ownership. Now, for large field GBPs, that is like the cardinal sin, something that you don't want to do, right? When you duplicate yourself, you corner yourself into an ownership debacle, you're going to first off have no leverage to the field. And then, of course, you're going to duplicate yourself with other lineups. So even when you win, it's going to be capped. For cash, that's exactly what you want to do, because when you're doing that in cash, you're essentially giving yourself more outs to the 50th percentile, because when one of those cash players plays well and you have them and everyone else does, it's like, so what? Whatever. We're down to a 5v5 versus everyone else. And if all three pieces of chalk, let's say there's three pieces of mega chalk, which there were for 4-round contests here, if all of those end up hitting, right, it's just a 3v3 versus the rest of the field. I should say if all three of them, if all end up hitting. If all three of them end up missing, it's the same thing, right? Because if everyone ends up having those players and they suck, it's not the end of the world, right? But if you're not a part of that chalk, right, and you decide to go in your other department, right, you're playing a six versus like a 3-on-3 of the rest of the field. And let's say that all of them go out there and miss, right? It'd be really easy to go out there and cash. But in a cash contest, you're looking to make this a consistent ROI. Like, you don't want this to be up to chance, up to your 6 lineups. Like, if you can make it up to just 3 positions where you have to beat the rest of the field, where you have to play smarter than the rest of the field, I would take that every single day than a 6-leg parlay of trying to do so, right? So that's the thought process when it comes to cash. So who's going to be the chalk bar that I think you should just eat no matter what? Meliana Grillo. Tony Finau makes a lot of sense. I think Adam Hadwin, because he's $9,300, is going to get a ton of ownership. Let's see, probably Tom Hoagie. He's going to be relatively high owned for the second round contest. These type of players, and we're going to end it at 4. Like I said, I can't give you the whole lineup against DraftKings terms and conditions. Just guys towards the top of the leaderboard that played well round 1, that project well for round 2. I mean, Adam Hadwin's playing in the PM, so actually, let's go ahead and just make this all AM guys towards the top. We can constrict this a little bit, make it even better for this contest. So let's put Adam Long in there. So rather than taking somebody like Hadwin who's in the PM wave, let's take every advantage we can get towards the top of the leaderboard. We know they're playing well. We know that they're obviously going to be relatively high owned because of how they played. Also, just because Grillo, Tony Finau, Kazire, and Long should get some attention. And we only have 2 spots to deal with, right? So let's say all 4 of these are going to be the quote-unquote chalk tomorrow. Now, I do think that Sanjay could be a little bit chalky, but I'd rather get the Tony Finau because he's in the AM wave. You're playing a 2-on-2 versus the rest of the field, right? And you have $8,100. So if we sort this by salary, you can go here and kind of figure it out, right? We talked about somebody $8,200 who might make some sense for trying to get that 2-on-2 versus the rest of the field, right? And then down there towards like $8,000, there's a few other pretty solid ball strikers that are playing in the morning wave that you could consider. So it's not rocket science to figure out how I'd finish out the rest of that lineup, but it would essentially be 4 guys that are going to be extremely popular towards the top of the leaderboard, and then filling it in with a few guys that are maybe a little bit lower owned. Let's go ahead and talk about the GPP strategy, which could not be more different. So in that type of lineup, obviously looking at the score and just trying to take the chalky guys. Obviously for GPPs, we're trying to differentiate ourselves. So I'll be starting some lineups with Davis Riley. And like I mentioned before, let's go ahead and show you what I think is going to be a unique build, which is starting with somebody like a Davis Riley, he's going to be like 20% owned, so he won't be overlooked. But living in this 8K range, we talked about Goddard up as a play. I think he might be a little bit overlooked. JT Poston might be worth a few looks playing in that morning wave. We talked about him a little bit. Martin Laird, I mean, he's playing in the PM wave, so he doesn't really have that going for him, but he's going to be super low owned. And then filled out with a couple 7K guys. I mean, this type of build right here is going to be royally overlooked. Goddard up like 13% owned. I mean, if you're trying to take guys like Tony Finau 30%, let's say you're starting with, let's make this pretty chalky here. Let's go ahead and take JT Post in there. In the 8K range, I guess Adam Long is going to be relatively chalky. This right here, I mean, these 4 players, you're probably duplicating yourself with at least 1,000 players in the large field GPP where you have and say there's only 11,000 entries, so maybe not quite that many. Let's say maybe like 700 entries here because there's 12,000 entries that you end up duplicating yourself with. You don't really want to play a 2-on-2 in a large field GPP against 700 other entries. That doesn't sound like a good time. It sounds like a lot of duplications willing to happen and not that many avenues to success. So that's why we take guys out like an Adam Long. That's why we take guys out like a Tony Finau and try and take some pivots. Like I said, you can consider taking Davis Riley. Let's say Sahith Theegala, somebody you want to take up top instead. Go down here to the bottom of the 7K range and let's put Griot in there, right? So you're taking one piece of chalk here and somebody like an Emiliano Griot. But because these three players, I don't think are going to be that highly owned, I'm at least a little bit more willing to get to this type of lineup than the ones with Tony Finau, right? Because, a 2-on-2 with, you're duplicating yourself with like 700 lineups, let's say with the other one. This one, because you don't have a 30% owned Tony Finau, you don't have a 20% owned Adam Long, you're duplicating yourself with maybe 300, 400 lineups at the very most, probably less than that, right? Probably closer to like 100 lineups. I'm a lot more willing to get to a 2-on-2 versus 100 lineups than versus 700 lineups. So that's how you kind of think about these GPP contests. Now, if you're in a single entry or a 2 to 3 max, I'm a little bit less worried about ownership, a little bit more worried about median projection. So, if I wanted to take a couple 9K guys, let's go ahead and put Davis Riley in there. Cam Davis, the other poster boy from the channel here. You don't have to be as unique about it, right? We can take Chris Goddard up, take somebody here in the 7K range too. Let's put Griot in there too, right? He's been the poster boy of the video at this point. For a 2 to 3 max, something like that, I'm not trying to, jam in these quote unquote low owned guys in the 8K range, like we were getting to like a Martin Laird, like we were getting to here in the bottom of the 7K range that we think are going to be relatively low owned. We can kind of take a more balanced approach, take a little bit more chalk, be a little bit more lenient when it comes to the ownership that we're allocating. So it's all about contest selection, player pool, right? Obviously, that's on my Patreon page. If you guys are checking that out, it's implementing that player pool from GPP to GPP. And obviously, I can't give away all the goods. Like I said, that's why I want to do a lineup study after the fact, because, I can show you how I actually built my 2 to 3 maxes, like who I chose, right? And why I chose them. We can go through that, my GPP pool. I can show you kind of all the wacky builds that I went with, particularly the roles that I'm setting. I can show you my weather stacks. I can show you some of the skill set stacks I'm going with. Like if I'm really trying to take all guys that are bombers in the same lineup, like 4+ bombers in lineups, I do that from time to time. I could show you that kind of stuff, right? But I can't give away the goods beforehand because obviously I'm playing against you guys, right? It's a game. We're playing GPPs. I'm willing to coach you guys through it, give you guys suggestions, but I can't give you exactly what I'm doing, right? Because that wouldn't be too good for the good old ROI. Let's go ahead and catch up on chat, see what's going on. Again, if you do have any questions, go ahead and throw them down there right now. We're going to go ahead and wrap this thing up with the Q&A. Let's see what we got. Catch Began says, guys, stats never lie except for slapdicks. Yeah, stats definitely lie, especially in single round sample sizes when it comes to golf. That's for sure, right? That's why you don't always go to the guys that are playing the best in shots gained approach. Mo Lim, yeah, I saw him on the leaderboard. He's playing pretty well. Obviously, a little bit of an unknown prospect there, Pro Reactor, but he's played well there in the first round. Hadwin says, Hadwin, Theegala, or McNeely. And do you like Rio and Svensson? I like Rio. Svensson's going to be chalky, so maybe a little bit beware on that. But if I had to choose between the first three, your main question, it's probably got to be either McNeely or Theegala. It's close between the two. Both are pretty solid plays. Catch Me Can says, when are the shirts and hats coming out? Yeah, I need to get some merch made. Good idea there, Catch Me If You Can. I'll let you know. And maybe you'll get one for free there since you're one of the first supporters here of the channel. Max House says, Mint pick one. Yeah, for me, it would definitely be Theegala. He'd be the one that I like. And if I had to pick one of the last two, it'd be Griot. Griot is one of my favorite players in the pool, if you can't tell. Nick Mars says, guess the cut line. +1. We'll say +1 cut line for this golf tournament. Catch Me If You Can says, I'll share my winning lineup. Just tell me how to do it. I couldn't get on the Discord when I subscribed. Yeah, so first off, if you have Twitter, I think you might have gotten banned on Twitter, if I remember correctly. You can go ahead and just DM me it on there. I have my DMs open. I have it on Facebook. You can't set it on YouTube, or else I'd say to do it that way. But I can get you on the Patreon too. I mean, on the Discord too. So we can figure that out as well. Hit me up on Twitter if you can, if not on Facebook, and I'll send you the link for that. Patrick says, what about Ju-Young Kim? Is assuming who you're talking about. And you just jumped on. Of course. And yeah, thank you for the hard work. Of course, man. So let's talk about Ju-Young Kim. So he's in the PM wave. I think he's still going to garner attention because of how high pedigree a player he is, quote unquote, but everyone's going with this week. I'm not going to play him in round 2 showdown. I hope he plays well because I have a bunch of them in my 4-round contest. If he was in the morning wave, I'd be a little bit more willing to get there, but he's in the PM wave, which I think is going to play a little bit harder. So he's also a little bit more expensive. What is he, like $8,400 now? Let's see. Does memory serve me correctly? He is. Ju-Young is $8,400, or Tom Kim as he wants to be called now. So Tom is $8,400. I'm probably going to wait on him. I hope he plays well, though. He's in my 4-round lineups. Jeff says, thoughts on Sloan and Scott Brown? Oof. I'm just going to say oof. They're not my favorites. Let's see what wave they're in. If they're in the good wave, I can get there. AM wave for Sloan, okay. And the other one was Scotty Brown. Let's see where Scott Brown is. There he is. AM wave. I guess. I don't like the plays, though. I mean, they're just like low pedigree players. I mean, if you're going to look for pivots in that range, right, like Hayden Buckley, I like his ball striking a lot more than Scott Brown, so I'd rather get there. But I understand it, right? They're at least in the morning wave. They have that going for them. I mean, even Roger Sloan, like there's pivots in this range I'd rather get to that are just better ball strikers, that are even cheaper, like further down, like a Parbajan, for example, that's $200 cheaper. I'd rather pivot to him in the morning wave than somebody, like a Roger Sloan, but there's worse plays you can make, right? It's single round sample size. It's Showdown here for Friday. I don't know if I can get there, to be honest. Patrick says, are you favoring the AM wave 5-1, 4-2, or 6-0? It's going to be a lot of 5-1 and 6-0s. So I don't want to give away my entire process. But on my player pool, a majority of the guys that I have down as a yes are in the AM wave. Most of the exceptions to that rule are in the 8, 9, and 10K range, and they're sparing. I can count them on one hand, the guys that are playing in the PM wave that I actually have in my player pool. So, yeah, definitely playing a lot of stacks that'll usually just happen organically because a lot of my exposure will be on the guys in the AM. But, yeah, I'm going to have some 6-0s in there for sure. Roman says, who do you like on the 3-ball tomorrow between Finau, Day, or Riley? First off, yeah, that group has been a lot of fun to watch, but I like Riley. I think Riley is going to go out there, make a bunch of birdies, put up a pretty solid score. Tony Finau, he putted way over his ceiling today. Now, his approach play was on point, right? He was hitting absolute darts out there, so it didn't really matter how well he putted. But yeah, I really like Davis Riley, to be honest. And then you said, what about Long and Poston? I really like Poston. So we talked about Poston earlier. I know you're just jumping in, so I'll give you the Spark Note version. Great bent grass putter, pretty solid ball striking today. I like the fact that he spikes with the putter, and he's not going to be super highly owned. I have him at like 18.5%, which compared to his 4-round exposure is actually a little bit less than what he's owned for these 4-round contests. So I like JT Poston. And then you said Adam Long, right? I like Poston more. I'll just tell you that much. Adam Long's not my favorite play for tomorrow. I think he lacks upside. Like he's just not that good of a player. And I think compared to the guys priced around him, you can get higher pedigree players at lower ownership. So that's what I say about Adam Long. He's not my favorite play for tomorrow, without spoiling whether I'm playing him or not. Yeah, go Steelers. I love to see that down there in chat. And we have Antoine down there as well. That's all I've got, though. Oh, we have one more question. Got it in there right before I did the outro, Max. Good time in there. We have Cam Davis or McNeely. That's Cam Davis for me because he's AM wave. McNeely is PM wave, so he has that going against him. So it's close. Both are solid plays there, Max, but I would side towards Cam Davis. But that's the last question. Got to cut it off right there, guys. Again, I do have the sore throat because of COVID, so trying to keep it together as best I can on the voice perspective. But I enjoyed doing the live stream. Hopefully, you guys feel a little bit more prepared for tomorrow. We're going to be doing the same thing for rounds 3 and 4, so expect something right around 7:30, 8 p.m. Eastern time. Going to be touching on Saturday and Sunday for prize picks as well. And also tonight, there will be a prize picks video. So look forward to that. If you're looking for the prop scene, it should be a fun weekend. I mean, scoring today was kind of a carnage fest. Like I said, scores a lot higher than we're used to at the 3M Open. But for tomorrow, scoring should go back to what we've used to seeing, something closer to a half a stroke under par, maybe even an entire stroke under par. And then throughout the weekend, it looks relatively benign as well. Relatively low winds on Saturday, Sunday. It's probably a little bit too early to look at the wind forecast. You're looking at high temperatures, which means the ball will be flying. And those par 5s that really weren't all that reachable today are probably going to be reachable as early as tomorrow and certainly on Saturday and Sunday. So scoring is going to get better. You're going to see some fireworks out there. So if you have somebody that's at like 2 over par, it's not the end of the day. I can tell you if they have 3 days of scoring, they can get to 15 under par and perhaps win it like Cam Champ did last year. So I'm rooting on Davis Riley, if you couldn't tell, with the whole 2 over thing. That wasn't a dead giveaway. But like I said, guys, I appreciate all the support. Make sure you smash the like button before you hop out of here.